Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our new show this week in Israel, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed. Well, the White House is sending Israel a very special gift for Hanukkah this year. Vice President Mike Pence has just announced that he's visiting Israel this December on a mission to end the persecution of Christians and all religious minorities in the Middle East.
In fact, President Trump has directed me to go to the Middle East in late December. And I promise you, one of the messages that I will bring on the President's behalf to leaders across the region is that now is the time to bring an end to the persecution of Christians and all religious minorities.
This visit is a direct request from President Trump himself, and Pence's itinerary is already filling up. The vice president will be pushing the White House's peace plan in separate meetings with both Prime Minister Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Pence will then continue on to Egypt to discuss U.S.-Egyptian security ties, as well as broader talks about defending religious minorities in the Middle East. A longtime supporter of Israel, the vice president will also likely address the American policy on Iran and reiterate Trump's promise to move the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Many have been anticipating Trump's official outline for an Israeli-Palestinian peace plan, hopes that were somewhat dampened earlier this week when a White House official confirmed there were no imminent plans to present a deal. Needless to say, Vice President Pence has his work cut out for him when he arrives in Israel this December. The Israeli government has just approved 176 new homes in Jerusalem. This enormous expansion means the neighborhood of Nof Zion is about to become the largest Jewish sector in all of East Jerusalem. Though the approvals have been applauded by many, the decision has already received harsh criticism from all over the world. That's because East Jerusalem is considered by some to be Palestinian territory, illegally annexed by Israel after the Six-Day War in 1967. The Peace Now NGO has slammed the move, saying that the construction of a large settlement in the heart of a Palestinian neighborhood will be a severe blow to Jerusalem and to the chance to achieve the two-state solution. But Jerusalem's mayor remains hopeful that the new expansion is actually reunifying the city through direct action.
ירושלים היא עיר אחת, היא מאוחדת, יגורו בה כל האוכלוסיות, גם ערבים וגם יהודים, אבל היא תהיה בריבונות יהודית לעולמי עד.
East Jerusalem is home to 3 of the holiest sites of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, including the Western Wall, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So it's no wonder that any new real estate there is a big deal. Airstrikes in Syria have just killed at least 10 fighters from a militant jihadist group with ties to the Islamic State. Sources on the ground have accused Israel of carrying out the attack, though no evidence has been offered and the IDF has given no comment. Friction has certainly been spiking between Israel and Syria lately, and though the army has carried out airstrikes there in the past, those are usually Hezbollah targets or retaliation attacks. Just last week, Israeli jets returning from an intelligence mission in Lebanon were fired upon by Syrian anti-aircraft rockets. The jets retaliated by destroying the Syrian weaponry, igniting a tense war of words between Syria and Israel.
המדיניות שלנו ברורה. מי שמנסה לפגוע בנו, אנחנו פוגעים בו. היום ניסו לפגוע במטוסנו, לא מקובל עלינו. חיל האוויר פעל בדיוק, במהירות, והשמיד את מה שצריך להשמיד. אנחנו נמשיך לפעול במרחב ככל שדרוש כדי להגן על ביטחון ישראל.
No evidence has been offered at this time as to why Israel is believed to be behind this new attack. And many doubt the IDF would carry out such a risky operation given that it has little to do with Israeli security. At least 10 casualties have been reported from the airstrike on the Jahish Khalid bin Walid group's base close to the Golan Heights. The faction is not officially part of the Islamic State but has pledged devout allegiance to it and its mission to spread terror. Well, Syria has been accused of carrying out deadly and illegal sarin gas attacks on its own people, actions that Israel has harshly condemned. Well, the UN has been investigating Syria's use of chemical weapons ever since those horrific images emerged, but now Russia has put an end to that, all by using its veto power to officially end the probe into Syria's suspected chemical weapons attack. This is an extremely controversial move, one that the world's leaders have immediately slammed.
We are not deceived nor deterred, however, and we call on all members of this council to join us in rejecting these attacks on the Jim. These attacks are not intended to get us closer to the truth. They are intended to hide the truth. They are not designed to get us closer to accountability for chemical weapons use in Syria. They are designed to shield the perpetrators for some of the worst war crimes of our century.
American ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has just articulated what many are feeling by saying Russia has once again demonstrated it will do whatever it takes to ensure the barbaric Assad regime never faces consequences for its continued use of chemical weapons. Russia's veto comes less than 2 days before the council was set to release its findings on the alleged gas attacks carried out by Syria last April. The UN was about to vote on extending the probe for another year, and when Russia saw that it didn't have the votes, used its last resort veto power to get the results it clearly wanted. A separate investigation confirmed that sarin had been used against the Syrian people last June, prompting global outrage and even a U.S. airstrike against a Syrian airbase. Iran has just given a death sentence to a man accused of being an Israeli Mossad spy. Israel has affirmed no comment policy on accusations like this, but Iran has convicted the man of leaking intel to Israel, which led to the death of at least 4 scientists and is further disrupting Iran's plans to obtain nuclear weapons. At least 4 nuclear scientists were killed between 2010 and 2012. According to Iran, this was actually a skillfully organized Mossad operation designed to disrupt their nuclear program. Iran now believes that one of their own leaked the top-secret intel to Israel that led to the murders. The suspect in question is Ahmadreza Jalali, an Iranian doctor with ties to Sweden. He was arrested last year and imprisoned on espionage charges without access to a lawyer, conditions that Amnesty International say were completely illegal. And now an Iranian court has just slapped Jalali with a death sentence, labeling him a Mossad agent. Israel doesn't comment on accusations like this, though the U.S. has denied there was any American involvement in the death of the scientists. Amnesty will continue picketing for the doctor's release, but in light of this sentence, things are looking grim. Lawmakers in the United States House of Representatives just passed 4 massive sanctions against the Lebanese terror group Hezbollah. This is good news, especially here in Israel, because the sanctions target virtually any person, organization, or government that sends money to Hezbollah, while urging the rest of the world to take a firmer stand against the terror group. The 4 bills passed the floor with strong bipartisan sponsorship and approval. These aren't the first sanctions against Hezbollah, but when put together, they may certainly be the strongest yet. Strong enough to apparently raise fears in Lebanon, where catastrophic economic results are expected. That's because the first bill sanctions any individual, entity, or foreign government from sending Hezbollah any form of money or support. Hezbollah is a critical member of Lebanese parliament, which means Lebanese banks would take a huge hit from sanctions like these. Congress also passed additional penalties against Hezbollah's use of human shields and another urging the European Union to officially recognize the group's political wing as a terrorist organization. A 4th and final bill targets Iran's ballistic missile program, the first of many sanctions expected in the wake of President Trump's decertification of the Iran nuclear deal. Clearly, the U.S. is taking a firm stand against those seeking to wipe out the Jewish state. Hamas has just made a potentially major reversal during the ongoing efforts in the Palestinian unity deal with Fatah. Although the terror group is still refusing to dismantle its army, Hamas's leader is now saying that all its soldiers should fall under the umbrella of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. With us now to explain is ILTV's Aaron Porras. Now, Aaron, this is very different from what we've been hearing so far. How big of a reversal is this?
It's kind of hard to tell, because we've gone through every stage in these unification talks with Hamas and Fatah when it comes to the military. First, despite the opposition of Israel and the United States and even Fatah with the head Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, they all said, there's no way we're going to allow you to have a military. You have to dismantle it. And Hamas at first said outright no. Then they said, we'll be autonomous like Hezbollah. Then then they'll say that they maybe we'll reduce it or whatever. And now they're saying, okay, all 25,000 of our militants are going to be under the Palestinian Authority. So, we really just don't know.
So while the move isn't to dismantle, it's got to be better to have the military under Fatah than Hamas, no?
Perhaps. The truth is that we really just don't know because, we really don't know any of the details of that unification. And it seems as though that Hamas is the Hamas military is just changing hands, but not changing its mission. The unification talks, the one thing that we're sure of is that the Palestinians are unifying against Israel. It's the one thing that we're absolutely positive, especially with the rhetoric coming out of Fatah. So,
all right, well, let's check out your report.
So far, Hamas has refused to waver even slightly on the issue of keeping its massive army intact. But shifting it to the PLO, which is mostly dominated by President Abbas's Fatah government and headed by Abbas himself, is almost a total 180. Israel will not negotiate with a unified Palestinian government unless it dissolves Hamas's army and recognizes Israel's right to exist. But we're still very far from meeting those conditions. Complicating the deal is the fact that another Arab nation has just entered the fray in a major way. Qatar, possibly Hamas's biggest supporter and financier, has just confirmed it will build a new presidential headquarters in Gaza for the forthcoming government. It's a very significant and symbolic gesture, indicating Qatar may have plans to keep itself in all Palestinian affairs. The PA is set to officially take over control of all Gaza border crossings in less than a week, making reconciliation a very concrete reality in the near future.
For those hopeful that the Palestinian reconciliation might ease tensions against Israel or promote peace, Hamas has some bad news for you. Hamas's leader in Gaza has just announced that, quote, the time Hamas spent discussing recognizing Israel is over. Now Hamas will discuss when we will wipe Israel out. ILTV's Aaron Porras is here with more on the story. Now, Aaron, in what ways is this surprising?
Well, that's just it. Unfortunately, this isn't very surprising at all. Officials from Israel and all over the world, really, all across the world, have stated many times that it's very unlikely that Hamas will do anything to change its ways, on a fundamental level, and will likely, in all likelihood, look to retain its military forces, which is no small feat. It's about 25,000 militants.
It's a huge number. Now, why then is this news if Israel already expected that?
So, for a few different reasons. First, because it's still very much unclear whether or not Hamas will keep its military in the end of these negotiation talks. Second, assuming that they do keep their military, just for the sake of argument, it's unclear to whom that military will be accountable to. Will it be like Hezbollah, an independent military force, or will it be accountable to the Palestinian Authority? And if it is, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? We don't know. And third, which is arguably most important in this specific case, against the protestations of, again, Israel and the United States, Hamas leaders are now in Iran looking to create a deepened connection to Iranian forces in Syria, in Lebanon, and elsewhere, and looking to get some more support. So
Israel has a lot of reasons to be worried right now. We have a lot of reasons to be
worried about this, but yeah, I'll tell you more in the report right now.
These are obviously far from the words Israel has been hoping to hear, though they're not entirely unexpected. That's because both Israel and the United States have demanded that they'll only recognize a Palestinian unity government that fully disarms Hamas and recognizes Israel's right to exist. But giving up its massive army, the largest armed Palestinian force in the world, is something Hamas clearly refuses to do. Case in point, breaking another red line of the United States' demands, Hamas has just sent a team to Iran, hoping to strengthen ties. Many believe Iran will also help connect Hamas to Hezbollah as well as Syria, uniting against the common enemy of Israel. Despite these violations, an anonymous White House official remains strangely optimistic that the Palestinian unity deal might still prove fruitful for Israel. Though the official stresses that dismantling Hamas's army and renouncing violence remains a key requirement, the new opportunity in Gaza would help both parties, quote, if we can make something out of it, end quote. But with Hamas in Iran and its leader intent on annihilating the Jewish state, it remains to be seen if this will truly be a path to peace.
The Palestinian reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas has thrown yet another major question mark into the possibility of Middle East peace. President Trump has been promising a peace plan ever since the campaign trail, but hold your horses, because now a White House official has said there are no imminent plans to put a deal on the table. Many had expected Trump's plan for Middle East peace, the ultimate deal as Trump called it, to arrive shortly. That's because Team Trump has invested time and effort into peace envoys with multiple Arab nations, and Trump himself has had one-on-ones with both Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Sources within the White House say the administration is putting together a plan on the good faith that the Palestinians are genuinely seeking peace. But unlike past policy, this one won't impose any deadline. In another departure from past American strategies, the deal will also bring many other Arab nations to the table, as opposed to keeping it strictly between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But this latest news that the White House has no imminent plans for Trump's peace deal may have something to do with the latest Palestinian unity efforts. Israel has refused to negotiate with a PA supported by Hamas terror, while Hamas has only strengthened its resolve to obliterate the Jewish state. These complications are certainly going to have a major impact on any peace deal the White House can offer. All right, 16 Egyptian police officers have just been killed in a surprise shootout outside of Cairo. So far, no group has claimed responsibility, but Egypt had reportedly sent the officers to the area after learning of a terrorist training camp not too far from Cairo. Israel is now condemning the deadly terror attack and is calling on all countries to unite to prevent future terror. Egypt has been combating terror insurgents, including ISIS, for years now, but usually attacks like these are contained to the Sinai Peninsula. That's why the Egyptian ministry was quick to deploy police after learning of armed militants hiding out less than 125 miles southwest of Cairo, just off of a major road. When officers approached, they were quickly met with gunfire and a deadly shootout began, resulting in 16 Egyptian casualties. Unconfirmed reports suggest that the militants used rockets in their attack. Egypt has also confirmed that 15 enemy militants were killed in the clashes and is currently hunting for additional suspects that escaped. Israel has strongly condemned the violence against Egypt, calling it a severe terrorist attack, and is sending condolences to the Egyptian people. A statement from Prime Minister Netanyahu's office reads, "There is no difference between the terrorism that strikes in Egypt and the terrorism that strikes in other countries." Israel's ultra-Orthodox have been enraged ever since the court's decision to reverse the law exempting the Haredim from army service. Protests hit a boiling point just a few days ago when Haredim organized a day of rage, blocking roads all over the country. And in the wake of dozens of arrests, some are questioning the police's response. With us now to explain is ILTV's Brett Allen Smith. Now, Brett, what is the controversy here?
Thanks, Natasha. Well, as we saw last week, the Day of Rage protests got very out of control very quickly. Now, you had hundreds of Haredim picketing, shouting, "We'd rather die than be drafted," and then you had dozens of officers trying to break up the crowds and just get traffic flowing again. Police made at least 120 arrests that day, and when many Haredim refused to identify their names for their booking, police had to mark their hands with a marker and ID them by number. Obviously, the symbolism was a unpleasant reminder of a certain kind of Holocaust imagery.
Right, and I can imagine that this is just one of several accounts by the Haredim that are alleging either brutality or insensitivity against them from these protests, no?
Right, and the police have definitely been under a lot of scrutiny here and gotten some flack about that. Though having said that, many accounts identify the Haredim as especially aggressive in these protests and even inciting the police in the first place. There was even one man, not a police officer, just a civilian as far as we know, who tried to break up the protests kind of on his own by shoving pornography into their faces, which is, of course, forbidden in the ultra-Orthodox world. Why don't we take a look now at the report?
The ultra-Orthodox protests against Israel's draft exemption laws have been ramping up, reaching a violent climax just a few days ago. Haredim communities all over the country organized a day of rage to protest the arrest of 2 ultra-Orthodox youths when they failed to report to the IDF's draft offices. Police made over 120 arrests in violent protests in Bnei Brak, Ashdod, Jerusalem, and Beit Shemesh, where Haredim blocked traffic and shouted, quote, "We'd rather die than be drafted." But the police are now under criticism for the way the arrests went down. When the suspects were brought in for booking, many of them refused to cooperate with authorities, refusing to even give their name for booking. Police then assigned the suspects a number, which was written in marker on their skin to ID them for the necessary paperwork and trial. The imagery clearly struck a chilling nerve, a painful reminder of the numbers Nazis tattooed on Jews to identify them during the Holocaust. The police stand by their claim that the suspects broke the law by refusing to ID themselves, requiring alternate means for police procedure to move ahead.
The famous Israeli psychic Olli Geller is back on the map, and he's using social media to reel us right back in. Well, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here to tell us about his latest post.
Yes, Natasha. Well, first of all, for those who don't know who Olli Geller is, he's a famous, or some would say infamous, Israeli illusionist and self-proclaimed psychic known for his trademark TV performances of spoon-bending and other illusions. In a recent social media post, Geller claims that he might be mentioned in the JFK assassination files that he notes U.S. President Donald Trump is not preventing the release of. Geller goes on to describe having supposedly helped out various secret services, such as the CIA.
Other than talking about the files, does he mention anything specific that would have us believing he was really involved?
Well, as you know, a lot of people are and have always been extremely skeptical when it comes to Olli Geller's abilities, but honestly, from reading this post, I really don't know what to believe anymore. Geller goes on to say, quote, "For decades, I wasn't able to talk about the secret testing the CIA carried out on me until the CIA released millions of documents." He also mentions President Trump's decision to declassify the documents on the JFK assassination that would ultimately be released by Thursday, which include over 3,000 top-secret documents never before seen by the public.
This is really interesting. You know, I recently did a piece on another famous Israeli mentalist, Lior Sushel. He swears that he doesn't like to involve himself in politics, but I guess we'd never know if he was working with an organization like the CIA. He actually did work for the IDF during his service on some top-secret cases, but I'll have to keep you guys posted on whether or not he opens up and spills the details.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
All right, up next, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here to give us the top 5 universities in Israel.
You're probably wondering where all the brilliant and creative Israeli entrepreneurs studied that led them to develop world-changing companies such as Waze, Wix, and Mobileye. Well, here are the top 5 universities in Israel. At number 1, we have Israel's first university. Technion Israel Institute of Technology, located in Haifa, was founded in 1912, 36 years before Israel declared independence. Back then, Jews were often barred from technical education. Therefore, the establishment of a technical school was extremely crucial to the development of the Jewish homeland. Now, Technion offers 80 graduate programs and has about 12,900 students. Up next is the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, founded in 1918, making it the second oldest university and has been ranked among the top 100 worldwide. With around 23,000 students and an annual enrollment of almost 2,000 students from 80 different countries, HebrewU offers 90 courses from the study of 30 different languages. All you gotta do is pick one. At number 3 is Tel Aviv University, which was founded in the 1950s and has been ranked in the top 20 in the world in terms of scientific citation and among the top 100 universities internationally. The school has over 30,000 students and is also the largest university in the Holy Land. Also the top pick for students due to their fun and interactive student life. At number 4, make your way to the city of Beersheba to the Ben Gurion University of the Negev. This university is one of the largest leading research universities with 20,000 students. 33% of them take part in advanced research programs. Originally founded in 1969 as the University of the Negev, the university was later renamed as the Ben Gurion University after the death of the founder and first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben Gurion, in 1973. At number 5, we have the University of Haifa, which was established in 1972 and has a world-renowned reputation in the fields of different researches. This university actually holds the largest number of military and security personnel who acquire their education. Yala, what are you waiting for? Ready to apply? Stay tuned for our next top 5. Back to you.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of This Week in Israel. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.